Back in the day, I was a marriage blogger, and there was a book that I read called The 5 Love Languages. And although most people apply it to marriage and relationships, I believe you can apply it to creating connection in your community. So I'm going to break down the 5 different love languages and how to apply them to create more connection in your community. Let's go. So here's a fun fact for you. I used to have a marriage blog. Yeah, I did, a marriage blog. That was one of the first things that I did to build community online, was to create a space where people could learn from other people's marriages and their stories. I had a weekly thing called the Wednesday Wife, where wives would share their stories about what really happens in marriage so that we could feel like we're not alone. Well, during my time as a marriage blogger, I came across a book called The 5 Love Languages by Chapman. Now, if you have ever done any type of marriage counseling or looked into how to be a better spouse or partner, then you have probably come across this book because it is one of the world's leading bestsellers ever of all time when it comes to relationships. But I want you to think about it a little bit different on this episode with me today. I want you to think about how the 5 love languages apply to how you show up for your community. Because here's what's true about building a community. If you start thinking about the fact that we are just humans interacting in an online space, then you'll get a lot more curious about human nature and how people build relationships and the psychology around people in general. And so I think that Chapman's 5 Love Languages book is really important for us to understand so that we can make sure that we're speaking to all 5, yes, all 5 love languages in how we show up for our community. So let's break these down. The first love language is words of affirmation. Now, let me just tell you something. Between you and me, I am terrible at words of affirmation. I used to keep a sticky note on my computer that reminded me to give words of affirmation to my husband because it is his love language and it's probably the one that I'm the worst at. Now, God just works that way. We've figured it out over the years, but I struggle with this even with my employees, and I let them know, hey, if I have not praised you in a while, don't hesitate to ask for it because sometimes I just forget and it doesn't come naturally to me. And if that's true for you, you may struggle with this inside of your community as well. But how are we praising the progress that people are making inside of our communities? Now, you hear me talk about celebrating people a lot, celebrating the big wins and the small wins. And this is part of it. This words of affirmation gets fulfilled when we celebrate the progress that people are making, no matter how big or small. But celebrating progress is the easy thing to do. But what are some other ways that we can provide words of affirmation? What about when we see behaviors in our community that are showcasing the culture that we want to nurture? Can we give words of affirmation to those individuals to say, hey, this is the kind of behavior that we want to see, and I love it, and I want to see more of it. Thank you so much for showing up. And when we think about having a heart of gratitude inside of our community and pointing out things that we are grateful for, whether it's progress that they've made or whether it's how they're showing up for themselves or how they're showing up for each other, then those are perfect opportunities for words of affirmation. You can also leverage this privately. So oftentimes we'll do things like praise people publicly on a live or put them in a newsletter or feature them in our social media or comment on a post that they've done or reply to a comment that they've done. But sometimes I find that people get more meaning from a word of affirmation when it's done privately. Whether that be a DM that you send them or an email that you send their way or a note in the mail, which you know I love if you know me, or a phone call. Something done privately like that, although the words may be the same, can resonate even deeper and create more connection with somebody in your community, especially if there's somebody that loves words of affirmation. So let's go to the second love language, and that's quality time. And you may be thinking, oh girl, I have 2,000 members. I do not have the ability to give quality time to 2,000 members. And that may be true, but there are some things that you can do that feel like quality time. So if you do Q&As, and you show up with them on a regular basis. That's quality time. If you do videos, so for example, Bonjoro videos or Video Ask or BombBomb videos, these are all companies that facilitate personalized videos that may take 15 seconds of your time to send. That feels like quality time, like you have invested in them. But what I want you to keep in mind is that quality time doesn't always have to be with you. Quality time can be with your team. So I was talking to a client this morning, and we've been implementing a reactivation campaign for some of their members. And in that, they offered 15-minute success calls for some members. And they're going amazing. And what they're finding is that people are expressing great appreciation for the fact that they took the time to meet with them one-on-one. And it doesn't have to be one-on-one. It can be in a group format. So offering check-in calls or orientation calls in a group format is a great way to fulfill this need for quality time. But it also doesn't have to be your team. They can have quality time with each other. So one of the things that I love to implement inside of memberships is breakout sessions. These breakout sessions that you can do on Zoom give people opportunity to connect on a smaller group level. And that is a great way for them to get the investment of quality time from other community members during these breakout sessions. People who are there investing their time, not just in helping their own business grow, but in helping the business of others around them, or helping other people achieve the result that they're trying to achieve, or just spending time with them, like a cocktail hour. That's a great way to have quality time. But the key is that you're creating some space and some opportunity for them to see that you or your team or the community is investing time in them. These are the people that want to show up live. They want to show up and know that other people are showing up too. So how can you love people who really desire quality time? So the third love language I want to talk about is acts of service. And it may seem like my whole program is an act of service. An act of service is when you ease the burden of responsibility for somebody else. So you're like, hello, 30 training videos, showing up for Q&As every month, act of service. But here's what I find to be different. When acts of service are going to be received as an expectation versus something that feels like love. So if I've paid to be a part of your program, you fulfilling and delivering on what I'm paying you for doesn't really feel like an act of service. It's an exchange in value, not an act of service. But when I go above and beyond expectations to make your life easier or make your journey, your progress easier, I delight you with surprise bonuses and extra templates, and the community is just giving to you. They're sharing things that typically in your industry would not be shared with other people who might be considered competitors. That feels like an act of service. So it's not what you do to serve them that they feel like they are giving an exchange of value for in a monetary form. But what are you doing above and beyond that? How is your customer support team, your community manager, how are they going above and beyond to serve your community? That's how you can scratch that need for acts of service. So the fourth love language is receiving gifts. And this may seem a little bit more challenging, and it might be because often this is talking about physical gifts, monetary gifts or flowers or, mugs in the mail. And you can definitely send swag to people. You can definitely put a gift in the mail to your new subscribers or to people that have been in the program for a year. I love a good excuse to send a gift to somebody. I really do. Maybe you send something for milestones that they've achieved. Maybe it's for their 1-year anniversary in your program. Maybe you're sending them a thank you gift because of how they've shown up in your community. It could be a gift. It could be just a note in the mail. It could be a swag box that everybody gets. But here are some other things that you could do that aren't necessarily physical gifts that can feel like you're giving them a gift, although it's not physical. So one thing that you could do is preload something like a Starbucks gift card and put it in the community. And if you know Starbucks gift cards, there's like a QR code or something like that people can scan. So you can put that in your community and you can say, have a coffee on me today. I just wanted to show my appreciation for you all. You could do the same thing with another gift card for another company. Maybe you have gamification elements inside of your community and people can earn points and badges to redeem for something. Or maybe it's another digital gift, like you purchase access to an ebook of a friend of yours that's just released a book, and you purchase access for everybody in your community to get that ebook. Wouldn't that be an incredible gift? Or what if you have a friend launching a new program and you want your community to get to know that individual and to get to benefit from something that they teach? And so you work out with this friend to give a gift of some kind of program or piece of the program to your community. Those things can feel like gifts too. So I want you to open your mind to think outside of the box. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical gift, but how can we give something to individuals in our community to help them feel like they're receiving a gift? And then last but not least, the one that you think, I don't know how she's going to talk about this one and how I love my community, but it's physical touch. And although this may not be something that you can do because you may not be able to meet your community in person, you may not be doing in-person events, which is the most obvious way to get the physical touch aspect of 5 love languages in play is by having in-person events where people can hug and high five and meet and greet you and others. But there are some ways that you can do it that don't require in-person. So Mel Robbins has this book called The High Five Habit, and it's all about what happens in your brain when you high five yourself in the mirror. And so what does it look like for you to high five your community across a Zoom meeting or across a Facebook Live? And one of my friends, Kim Walsh Phillips, does this, and she calls it the high 10. But in her community, it's not a high 5, it's a high 10. So when you do something good, Kim gives you a high 10. And I hope that her community gives a high 10 back. That's a physical action that, although it may not be a physical touch, our brain will often receive it as such. So don't be afraid to fist bump your community or high 5 or high 10 your community or give them a big hug virtually. Because it's not the same thing as true physical touch. But simply doing that act can release the same type of endorphins and serotonin and all of those good feels that it would when you're actually doing it physically. So get creative about how you can help people receive physical touch without actually being in person physically. All right. So those are the 5 love languages I want you to be thinking about when it comes to serving your community. Words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, receiving gifts, and physical touch. Open your mind this week and ask yourself how you can leverage all 5 of these love languages to create more connection inside of your community. I can't wait to hear what you do. Let me know in the comments or send me a DM.